out to you from Apple's report here?
There's a couple of things, and thank you for having me. First of all, the decline year on year on iPhone is minimal, and I think this speaks to maybe an anticipation to what's to come, especially with Apple Intelligence in the new cycle. The other positive thing is that China is soft, but Luca Maestri was quick to specify that it's more about currency than it is competitive environment. So that's good news for them because it might be shorter lived. And then the other positive point, looking quickly at the report, is iPad very strongly up, and not just up year on year, but also growing outside of the current base. So not upgrades, but new customers for Apple.
That's a really interesting one because some folks have kind of written that product off for dead. Am I wrong? Like there was some thought that that was kind of like didn't have a place. Where's the pickup coming from?
I think there's definitely the chip side of things, so the upgrade now to Apple Silicon, and so having the second generation of product that is all owned by Apple from an experience perspective. They have done really well from a feature perspective. It's now really more similar to a Mac experience, and I do think that AI will play more into that. It's still a niche product than the Mac is, but there's definitely opportunity there in enterprise.
Okay. Now, looking at that refresh cycle, it seemed like you do think that the slight decline in iPhone sales might be reflecting pent-up demand. I think there's some pretty good logic to that. We talked about that a little bit as well. So what then do people want to see? Are they just ready to pull the trigger no matter what Apple's offering you here, or is it still going to be dependent on what the actual utility is?
I think there's always a segment of the market that is going to upgrade no matter what, right? There's that high end that needs to have the latest and greatest, especially when it comes to Apple. And it's interesting, the conversation you were just having about the softness in the consumer spending, and how Apple usually fares well because they have a higher end of the market that buys those products. So it's always hard to really relate Apple and economic trends because of that reason, and also because people have a very high affinity with smartphones. Is still the most the most loved device that consumers have, and where the money usually tends to go. But I think with AI is going to make iPhones more relatable, even more relatable than they have been over the years. And as the device become more complex, because you do more things, AI is going to be able to make it easier for consumers to use.
Okay, so the general thought is that it's going to be marginally better, and that's pretty much all there needs to be. There's a pretty low bar, it seems, you think, from consumers to be, they're just ready. They've been waiting for some of them, like, isn't the average age like almost 5 years or something for a phone at this point?
It is 3 to 4 years on average, and then the higher end is definitely on a year to 18 months.
Okay. We talked about the services component in terms of the profitability for Apple. We had a jarring bunch of shareholder unfriendly moves from Intel. It seems like Apple's very well positioned to continue being one of the most friendly shareholder businesses around.
I think if you look at their business is so diversified now, it's not just consumer, but business has picked up quite a bit, especially around the Mac. And the iPhone has always been very well entrenched from the very beginning of BYOD, so bring your own device, into the business segment. And that is where you're going to have less fluctuation that is linked to seasonality. So I think that the more we see that, and we see the services part of the business grow, the more you end up with a stock that is well diversified and can, live up better to whatever economic pushback they feel.
Okay. Anything in particular you want to hear? They don't give guidance, but is there anything you've got your ear really primed to for the call?
I think from the call, you always get a little bit of a better sense of channel, and so see what is left in the channel before we get to next quarter when the iPhone is, so how much inventory they have in the channel versus having to fill the channel for new devices. So that's always interesting in this quarter in particular.